seconds in case we're not totally live, but I think we're just about live now. It's so good of you to come and do this today. I mean, you couldn't have chosen a more difficult time to do it within a week of an operation. And I have to say, your makeup is incredible, that you've hid everything that's gone on.
I spent a fortune and I thought, I don't care. I'll spend anything. I have got black and blue eyes and yellow eyes, and this makeup has just covered it all. And the plaster, of course, is completely covering something that would be uncoverable by makeup.
Yeah, no, that I realise. So if I just say to everybody, because I'm absolutely as certain as I can be that most people who joined today know exactly who you are, but let me just a little bit say, and I'm not very good at time scales, and I have to say this is kind of interesting because you're doing it from home in Newbury, and because I had to come out because I had a tooth problem, I'm doing this from a hotel bedroom in Romania. I don't go local to a dentist, I go a long way. So we met, what is it? It must be about 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, I'm reckoning it was. I was trying to work it out too. In fact, I was trying to look for the email where we were first introduced. I think it was 23 years ago.
Unbelievable. We still look just as good as we did then, of course.
We do look exactly the same.
But I always remember being sent this email by somebody who was meant to be helping us with a business. And they said, I really think that you two need to meet each other. And I haven't got a clue why. But anyway, somehow we got the date in the diary. And I think it was only literally, and we were meeting at the time I lived up in Leicester and you lived down in Newbury. And so we were meeting at a services just outside Oxford. There's a hotel there. And I think it was the day before I phoned you. And I just need to apologize to everybody, but this is what I actually said. I said, why the fuck are we meeting? I haven't got a clue.
And I said, I haven't got a fucking clue either.
And so we met at this hotel. It was meant to be a sort of half an hour meet. And I think 3 hours later, we left saying, oh my God, we want to work together. We absolutely have to work together. And that's where our journey started. And since then, well, it's been one heck of a journey. And I do remember, I can't remember the first time how long it took me to persuade you to come on the program. I'm not even sure you did first. I think you thought you'd get your own people. So
I did. I sent my whole team through it. I think probably fairly soon after we met. And then they were all coming back saying, Sherilyn, you really need to go on this program. And I was, oh shit. I thought I was really good leader, and I wasn't, obviously. And then I think it was about 3 years before I actually did the first program, which you delivered in Leicester, and that was the change of everything for me.
So why don't you? Let's assume for the moment there's going to be a lot of people, as I say, on here who know you, but why don't you just introduce yourself and a little bit about you, who you are, how you've got to where you are before we even get on to talking about leadership.
Sure. Okay. So when we met, so the early part of my life, which I kind of see as a before and after, I was a headhunter. So I was a corporate headhunter for 20 odd years. And I owned my own executive search firm. And that's what I was doing when we met. And then I got to say that the changes that I then made in my life a little bit later were probably all predicated on me going through the Living Leader at that stage in my life, because it completely inflamed this passion for developing talent, developing others. And I'd felt for a long time that as a headhunter, you just don't do that. You know, it's hardly life-changing, right? The world does not need another headhunter. And any headhunter worth their salt can do the same job as any other headhunter. So I was feeling for quite a while that I wasn't making any kind of big impact in the world. But and I didn't realize that I was extremely stressed, very, very anxious, very controlling. a probably fairly good manager, but shit leader. And then I got to the stage where I was in my early 40s. I'd had my third surprise late baby, who you are the godmother of. And she's 17 now. Can you believe that? It blows my mind.
No.
But she was about 9 months old, and my older two were 10 and 11. And I had an illness that nearly killed me. And it nearly killed me very quickly. It's an illness that can, if you're going to die of it, you'll die in hours. And that was profound, right? Completely profound. And I remember thinking, as the doctor was talking to my husband, Mike, saying, she may not pull through this. She's a 9 out of 10 on severity, and 10 is, very painful and quick death. I literally remember thinking, oh my God, if I died today, it'd be a really shit day to die. Today would be a really shit day to die, because I haven't been the best mother I could be. I hadn't been the best wife I could be. I hadn't been the best leader I could be. I hadn't made any kind of legacy or dent in the world. I hadn't done what I felt was good stuff for real positive good and positive change. And that illness gave me a pause to really think about what was important in my life. And by then, as you know, I'd been through the Train the Trainer, the masterclass, to actually deliver the living leader. That also took you ages to persuade me to go on. But because I then really understood it at a much deeper level, this passion for developing others was paramount. Whenever I was thinking, well, if I'm not going to be a headhunter anymore, what am I going to do? For me, it needed to be something that was going to have the biggest ripple effect in the world that I could possibly make. And it was not going to be a commercial operation. So I've been ruthlessly commercial my entire life, on that treadmill of, making a bit of money, getting some material success, then getting scared that the money goes. So you work harder because you don't want to lose what you've got. And I was on that, I call it the treadmill of doom. And I was on that at 40. And so I decided that if I wasn't going to be a headhunter, I needed to work in an environment that was charitable or not-for-profit. It needed to be absolutely around developing talent. And I wanted it to be in an industry that would have the biggest impact on the citizens of the planet. And in my opinion, marketing, media, and advertising is the function and the industry that touches every single person in the world. Through all of the ways in which our industry works, we touch everybody. So we can actually influence, what everybody decides to do, what choices they make, what beliefs they hold, what behaviors they exhibit. And we have this industry, marketing, media, and advertising, literally has the power to do that to 7 billion people on the planet. So I wanted to set up something that was going to be in that industry, even though I'm not a marketer. And it was going to be about developing talent, the emerging talent. So I wanted to develop the board leaders of the future. It was going to be voluntary. So everybody involved in it would be gifting their time so that we wouldn't have to charge. In fact, all of our programs are free, highly selective, very hard to get in, but there's no money on the table. We can do it just on the caliber and the ambition and the potential of the individuals. And so we launched what's called the Marketing Academy in February 2010 in the UK. And it's now been in the UK for 13 years. We've been in Australia for 9 years, and we're just entering our 5th year in the States. So it's a small organization in that we've only employed 10 people. But the impact that we make is massive. And we now do 2 different programs. We do a scholarship program for the emerging level leaders, and then we do a fellowship program for current brand side chief marketing officers, aiming to get CMOs into the center of the boardroom as CEOs. And that's what I now do. So I closed my business I funded the academy for the first couple of years because it was my passion project, and it got me living again. And then I closed my company a couple of years later, and we built the academy into what is now quite a force. And that you were one of the first 5 people that I sent the kind of straw man strategy of this wacky idea. And I remember saying to you, look, I would love, Pen, I really, really would love if we could put the Living Leader program into the scholarship, which is actually a long program. It's a 9-month program. They get coaching and mentoring and all sorts. But I wanted to do the Living Leader as an anchor point within the program. And from day one, you've gifted us every year in every country the Living Leader with your facilitators. And so now at a scholarship level, over 850 scholars around the world have been through it. And combined with the rest of the program, which is extensive, the ripple effect of that learning and creating the opportunity for these young, these talented people to become the best versions of themselves they can possibly be is making this incredible ripple effect with the help of about 1,200 people that actually volunteer their time and resources to support the academy. So, so I think you've supported now 25 scholarship programs somewhere around the world, and you've come and talked to our fellows and shared your leadership wisdom with the fellows. And your philosophy of leadership is what we teach in the Marketing Academy. So it all stems from that meeting on the A34 23 years ago.
It is absolutely fascinating. And it's, I mean, you know what I think is the difference in management and leadership. But you actually say quite early on that you really didn't think that you were a leader. I think your words were you were a crap leader or something like that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the difference between management and leadership? Tell me.
Well, and this is why I think I was probably a good manager, right? Because there is a place for great management in every country, in every company. There is a place for it. Yeah. But it is very much about getting people to do what you need them to do in the way that you need them to do it, with a balanced scorecard, with an Excel spreadsheet, with KPIs, with budgets, with timescales. And it's very much about controlling what they're doing. So you are kind of helping them to do their job, but in such a way that they're not actually owning the outcome, right? You can get a fantastic project executed through solely using control and command, right? But if you're not there, if something happens to you, or if there's just resistance within the team, that team are not learning how to do this stuff for themselves. They're not understanding that they can be accountable, and they are certainly not understanding responsibility or taking responsibility. If you don't gift them the wonderful, wonderful gift of responsibility, they're not going to take it. And what leadership is for me is enabling, inspiring, and empowering people to do these things for themselves. You know, instead of just giving them the answer, help them to come up with the solution themselves. They'll own it if they've come up with it themselves. You can guide, you can advise, you can coach, but if you give them the freedom of being their best self, making their best decisions, thinking at the highest level they can possibly think, they're going to do those things whether you're there or not. And they're going to do those things for life, and then the impact and the ripple effect they'll have for that around them will be profound. And I never did that. I never did that. I didn't even really understand there was any difference, right? I thought that leadership and management was all the same thing. It's not. Totally different. Necessary. You know, management is necessary. Control and command is necessary in certain situations, especially when you're in a crisis situation. But leadership is going to get you profoundly higher, better results for the people that you're leading. And I didn't think like that, you know, as a business owner, as a sole breadwinner. You know, it was all about me. What could I get? How can I get my team to work harder? How can I get my customers to give me more money? You know, how can we get more business? All the time. How can we get more business? How can we get more business? How can we get more business? And I had these amazing people working for me, but I was actually suppressing their capability by just telling them what to do all the time. So I wasn't developing them. I wasn't building their capability. I wasn't giving them the opportunity to fly. I was literally suppressing them. And that's the difference for me. And it sounds nuanced, but it's not. It's a massive behavioral difference that you've really, really got to understand and believe in.
Yeah, and it is. And the thing I think that's interesting for me, and this is what I saw in you, is most of the time that we do that, we do it because we care, because we absolutely want them to be the best they can be, because we want to, and we feel that we ought to know the answers to everything. We ought to be able to tell them what to do. It's our responsibility to guide them and show them. What we're actually doing is making them like us. What we're actually doing is educating them how not to think for themselves. We're teaching them that they can never be, if you think about it, that they can't do it without you, and they can never be better than you were yesterday, because it can only come out of your own head.
Yeah.
And for me, the most powerful learning when I began to understand leadership, as you know, I didn't even get on this journey until the age of 50.
Yeah.
You know, but when I look back and think how I brought up my children, no question, straightforward management, because they were the people in my life who I loved the most.
Yeah.
You know, and so I always wanted to, and I'd made so many mistakes in my life. I couldn't stop telling them what to do, what not to do, where their decisions weren't good enough. No, this is might be good, but I'm going to tell you a better way. Could never stop doing it. And this is the thing that I have always, I suppose I never really realized its importance until older. People are apt to think of leadership as for the workplace. It's not. It's absolutely the foundation of life. You know, it's true every minute of every day.
Yeah.
You know, I know that there are examples that you can give of your own life where you really had to demonstrate, no question, leadership, not management.
I'm hoping I'm doing that mostly. And I mean, as a way of life, you know, I was just the same with my children as I was with the people working for me. And you're right, you don't want them to make the same mistakes you made, right? So you know, we know all the answers. We like to tell them what to do. I remember once being in a car with my oldest daughter, probably about 12 or 13 at the time, and she was talking through a problem that she had at school. And I went straight into, no, don't do that. No, you don't need to do that. No, what you need to do is you need to go and talk to the teacher, and you need to do this, and this. And she went, I need to work this out for myself, Mummy. And I thought, oh, shit, you know, I've done it again, shit. And she said, you know, I want a 20th century solution, not 19th century solution. And what she meant was I was too old to be able to come up with a solution for a 12, 13-year-old girl, right? So, you know, I know this stuff and I have to work on it all of the time because, you know, your child comes to you with and is sharing a problem, you're going to dive straight in with, I know exactly what you need to do. And the flip opposite of that is, tell me more about how you're thinking about this. Tell me how you feel you should manage this as the next steps. Or even, what can I do for you that might help to support you through this? You know, that's very different from saying, right, well, I'm telling you now, this is what you've got to do. So I truly feel that leadership is a way of life. And as you know, we teach on the scholarship, it's not a job title. It's not a position of hierarchy. It's not even really about having, well, it isn't about having a team reporting to you. It really isn't. It's a way of life. It's a choice. And it's a choice to put other people first. And it's a choice to decide to listen rather than tell, you know, to appreciate rather than bloody pick them up and criticize. It's about focusing on their strengths and not their weaknesses. And it's about thinking of what you can give to support everybody around you. You know, you don't even need to be working to be a fantastic leader. If you've got friends around you and you've got influence over how they think and feel in any moment, that's leading. So you to go on the journey to really understand it, you do need to understand leadership at a fundamentally deeper level. I was just on a I did an interview this morning where I was interviewing someone that we both know, John Amici.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how it's the reason why leadership globally is in such a shit state is because we've still got all of the dominant, aggressive, patriarchal, archaic leadership principles that we had post World War One. And because we've still got baby boomers and Gen X at the top of organizations, we're still seeing all of that old school, not helpful type of leadership. And I said, why is that then? You know, why are we still seeing it? And he said, it's easier. It's easier to manage than to lead. It's easier to tell somebody what to do instead of giving them the time to think about it for themselves. It's easier. And so I said, so what you're saying is it's easier to be a dick. And he said, yeah, that's it. It's easier to be a dick. So I'm spending my whole life trying not to be a dick, you know, because, you know, compassion, empathy, vulnerability, authenticity, integrity, all of the things that have become buzzwords. If you think about those from a behavioral perspective, that's what leadership is all about. It's about being a wonderful, beautiful, supportive human being in any context. And the impact that you get from that, and the performance that you get, and the seeing what happens with the people around you can be life-changing.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and I like that. I'll remember that. It's about being a dick, you know. It's pretty blunt, but there you go.
Did we do a profanity warning before we went live? I don't think.
And the other thing we didn't do before, or I didn't do before we went live, is say to anybody who's watching this, if you've got any questions, please send them in.
Oh, yeah. Questions.
Yeah, please do. We'd love to have some questions. So it doesn't matter what it is. Please send them in. I won't be able to read them without digging up my spectacles. But I'm sure Katie will be able to, or you'll be able to. One of the things that I think is interesting, and I do remember the journey with you, which has been so hilarious. You know, as you say, in the beginning, it took me a couple of years to get you to go on the program at all. And then
I was one of those arrogant dicks. Because I also think, because here's the thing, Penny, I don't believe that anybody wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to be a dick today. You know, I'm going to make everybody's life hell today. I'm going to suck the joy out of the room. I'm going to, you know, I am going to make your life hell in that meeting. I honestly don't believe that anybody wakes up in the morning and thinks like that. Mostly I feel that the poor leadership is done because they're unaware. They're really unaware of the other choices they could be making. And if they've never done it any other way, and they don't know, and the more senior you get, the less feedback you tend to get. So people aren't, you know, once they start to get up into the C-suite, you know, you're going to get less feedback saying, do you know your behavior in that meeting was shocking and it had this impact? Did you see the impact that had on that individual? They don't get that feedback, so they don't know. They were unaware. And I was unaware. And that's why you kept saying, you got to go on this, you got to go on this. And my people, they were basically saying, you're so shit, Sherilyn, you've got to go on this so that you can get better. And my arrogance and my, and because I was unaware that there was a different way, held me back for years. How ridiculous.
Well, it is actually. But the thing is that I remember every stage of the journey with you, because it then took me, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years to get you to go through the certified training program.
It was a good few years
let's
later.
say that you take this much from the 3-day program, and it's this much when you, it's just exponentially more.
Absolutely.
When you go through the certified training program. But to complete the certified training program, you need to deliver the 3-day pilot prep. For those people who don't know, it's 2 days, gap of 3 weeks, 1 day follow-up. So to complete, you need to do the pilot program. Bloody hell. It took another 2 years to get you to do that. And I always remember, you were, because you'd left such a long gap, of course, you then had to do so much preparation before. And I said to you before, so Sherilyn, do you think you're going to want to do this? Run quite a lot of programs. Oh God, no! I don't want to be a trainer. No, 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 no. And then you went, and then you delivered the first 2 days. You said, "Oh my God, it's amazing! I want to do it all the time. It's amazing."
It was amazing. I didn't think I would. I remember when we did it, when I went through the training, because it's a big investment in time to do the certified trainer. My driver was to understand it more deeply, because that even after the first 3 days, I was full of questions, right? It usually answers all of your questions, but I mean, I'd been a 25-year cynic, right? So I was literally just full of, yeah, but why? Why does that work? What is it about that has that kind of impact? And so I wanted to go on when I did finally go on the certified trainer, it was to get that much, much deeper understanding. And I never had an intention. I believe that it would just make me even better as a leader, which it did. But I remember thinking, no, I'm not a trainer. I'm not going to go and train this. And so I would never have got certified. You'd never have allowed me to unless I did the pilot. And I think it was about 2 years later, wasn't it? And if I remember, it was an organization that knew me or knew of me or something. And I knew one of the people in the team, and you said, look, if there's any time where this is the best audience for you, is this one for you to try this. And I did it, and oh my God, I mean you really get to understand it when you start delivering the programs. Jesus. And then and as you know, I'm time poor, but when I can, I will deliver the program anywhere. I love it. It's like 3 days of joy in my life, and that I'm still delivering. I deliver it within the scholarship whenever I can. I think it was Emma, who runs the company, said, "Do you need somebody down in? Do you need an extra person to come to the States?" And I go, "No, I'll do it. I'll take one of the groups," because I love it so much. And seeing the impact it has, even in the room, in the moment, is quite profound. Because I work with the scholars over such a long period of time, seeing the impact over time when actually we're talking to them as they're actually practicing and building the muscles is amazing. It's a privilege to be able to deliver the program, a privilege.
You see, this is the thing that I find so fascinating. I mean, as you know, we've now had over 80,000 people go through the program. It's been translated into 5 languages and so on. But the thing that's so fascinating, Sherilyn, and it still staggers me, is it's all common sense, and B, it's all really, really simple. It's not easy, because you need to work at it, you need to remember, but the behavior changes are actually really small. And what I think is so fascinating, and I would honestly recommend it to anybody, going through the certified training program pays you back in spades, because then you have the opportunity to teach it. Teaching is what helps you learn it.
Yeah.
Every time you deliver the program, you learn something else, you embed something else. Because even though leadership, I believe, I'm not saying a lot of people would say this, I do believe leadership is really, really simple. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And that's the dilemma, because unless you're a bloody saint, I still slip off the pedestal again and again. People think because I designed it and I teach it, you're going to get it right all the time. I don't. I absolutely don't. And my co-director, who, as you know, is my younger daughter, Emma, will tell you there's times that I slip off it really badly. Do you think I manage to always not do my damnedest to give her advice? And you'll be doing the same. But it is simple, isn't it?
It is simple. It just takes it takes intent. It's about being intentional, because it's so easy to, it's easy to be a dick. It's so easy to be unintentional about all of your behaviors. It's easy to be unintentional about the beliefs that you're holding. You know, it's really easy to hold on to crap and shit that happened to you 30 years ago. And, you know, woe is me, my parents totally fucked me up, which is really common, and we do fuck them up. But even that, there is, if you're intentional about that and you go, why am I choosing to hold on to some of that stuff? Is that really serving me? Or in what way is that serving me? You know, we're not intentional enough. And I believe that leadership as a life practice requires intentionality. I think you've really got to be mindful and aware, and it needs a bit more time. But if you give it the time, say even if you're working one-on-one with someone, if you're leading in the right way, you're likely to have some meetings with them that are longer than they could be, right? It takes longer to help someone come up with a solution for themselves than it does to just go, we can do this in 2 minutes. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do based on my experience, right? Which is fast. So what happens is it takes a little bit more time, especially if you've been leading in a very different way. But the time pays back in dividends as they grow, as the people around you grow, because they stop coming to you for shit, because you've empowered them to know, and you've helped their thinking grow to a level that they can own this stuff, they can make these decisions and choices for themselves. So whilst it takes a little bit longer in the shorter term, it doesn't overall, you know, the best leaders will be the ones that are very rarely tapped on the shoulder saying, tell me what to do, tell me what to do. But we think that the shortcut of it all is to just tell people what to do. And it just isn't. But you've got to be intentional, mindful, you know, going it when you're busy. We're all busy, right? The world is going to hell in a handcart. We're all stretched and busy. The easy choice is to make everything soundbite, short, sharp, do it now, get it done. But it is so short term. And you can damage the longer term capabilities within your people or even your friends if you're not mindful going into any conversation. So, you know, I have to check myself. If one of my team, if I've got a one-to-one coming up, for example, I've got to check myself before. I've got to think before I have the call. I've got to check myself, go, well, I've got a choice. You know, I can run this in the way that I believe leadership should be, or I can shortcut everything, make that half an hour quicker than it needs to be. I have to be intentional about that. So I think that's one of the things that is helpful for people, is to be aware that you're not intentional, that you operate unintentionally in your behaviors, and there's a way to do that differently.
Yeah, and I'm really curious because you've worked with some really big clients, and you still almost without the Marketing Academy, you will get people to come to you and say, give us advice how we handle this situation, whatever.
Yeah.
Just share with me, obviously, goodness sake, don't say the name of the company. What's the worst example of leadership that you've seen that you think, oh my God, this is really going to go, if they continue in this way, it's really going to screw up? What's the worst example of, you know, the behaviors you see?
I mean, I could give you a list in that I think that there is such poor, toxic leadership out there, and toxic company cultures. I heard a quote. Was that this morning? I heard a quote recently. The culture is defined by the worst behaviour you tolerate. So culture is defined by the worst behaviour you tolerate.
Wow.
And there is a shitload of bad behaviour going on there, and it's being tolerated. You can take it from politics into corporate, into public sector, all of them. And so there's actually, I could give you one example, but I don't need to because there's so many. And it is usually when the boards are middle-aged, predominantly white, predominantly men, predominantly balding, you know, who have been taught, that their way or the highway, control and command, hierarchical infrastructure, focus on the way in which shit gets done in the business rather than the people. And I've got to tell you, Pen, I've delivered this to so many companies. I very rarely have I delivered this to a company where I've come out of the living leader and gone, do you know, they probably didn't need that. Have I ever said that to you? I don't think I've ever said it. I don't think I've ever said it. And so, the worst things that companies can do is focus on short-termism, short-term results, cost-cutting, change of technology, and then ignore their people. The companies that wouldn't need us are the ones that are putting their people and customers, because I'm quite passionate about that too, but their people are their customers too, right? So putting their people at the heart of what they're doing and giving a disproportionate focus on putting their arms around the people than they are on whether or not they're going to buy in a new ERP system because it's going to shave, 0.02% off their cost line. And they're the ones that really struggle. And, when I run the Living Leader, and I run it with an intact team, because, you can go through as a team of 10, where it's an intact team. It might be a board, might be an exec committee below the board. And we also run it for 10 people from 10 different companies. But when I run intact teams, one of the challenges that will come up is that the people in the room will say, we're all right. We understand this. We get this. Everybody else in the organization doesn't. And I go, all right, well, that's interesting, isn't it? And I've had boards say that with the CEO in the room, going, no, we're all right, Jack, but the level below us, oh my God. They don't take responsibility. There's no accountability. There's no innovation. There's no creativity. And I go, no shit, Sherlock. Where are they getting that from? They're getting that from the behaviors that you're exhibiting, from the structures that you've put around them, from the way in which you're interacting, from the things that you're saying, from the things that they're seeing. As I said, nobody comes into work and goes, I'm going to be an idiot today. I'm going to be a dick today. Or I'm going to be lazy today. Or, I'm not going to work hard today. Nobody wants that. And so it's the environment that's created from the top. So there's that. I often get people, and we get it with scholars a lot, because they are in different companies. So when they go through the program, they go through in 10s. So the class of 30 will go through 3 living leader groups of 10. The challenge that they then have is that they go through the living leader, which really shines a light on this stuff. I always believe that what we're doing is we're really bringing their awareness up, and showing them, what good looks like. And then they go back in their workplace and they're surrounded by poor leadership behaviors. And that can be really frustrating. We have to support them through that quite a bit, because that can be so frustrating. But I will always say, take responsibility for the things that you can change and influence then. You can create, any individual within an organization can create positive impact every day. I tell a story in a Living Leader. I don't know whether I've told you this, but here's the way in which people within an organization can make change happen and have a positive impact at any level, no matter what job they're doing. I was doing a keynote in Australia once for Foxtel, so their version of Sky, and I was doing a talk to their field service engineers, which I know jack shit about. So I was a little bit apprehensive, and I was running late. I was driving. I had to drive over the Harbour Bridge, and I was running really late, and I saw that the car park was packed, and I thought, shit, I'm not going to get a car parking space, and I'm already late. And this guy comes out of the car park booth, like a car park attendant. And he comes up to the car and he says, how are you doing? And I go, actually, I'm really stressed because I'm about to do a keynote for your service engineers and there's nowhere to park and I'm already a bit late. And so I'm feeling quite anxious. And he went, darling, because they use that word, darl. They use the word darl in Australia, goes darl. He goes, you're going to go in there and be brilliant. I'm going to sort out your car. You just need to give me the keys. I'm going to go and sort it out. I'll park it for you. When you come out, send me a text and I'll drive it around to the front of the building. You're going to be great. And oh my God, he like completely changed how I was feeling, fundamentally feeling. And I believe that I then went on to do a much better keynote than I would have done if I'd been stressed and anxious. So this guy, who was probably one of the least paid people in the entire organization, no place in the hierarchy, no people reporting to him, had a positive impact on 350 field service engineers by exhibiting that behavior. Okay. So that's the kind of things that we get showing up when we're running the Living Leader. Is you get the, I'm going to absolve myself of responsibility of the bad behaviors that are happening in this company. Well, then you're never going to change anything. Are you going to be the change you want to see? Or are you going to muddle all the shit? It's easier to muddle the shit, but it's quite simple to make a few shifts in behavior to have a ripple effect around you. So we get, I'm going to absolve myself of responsibility because everybody else in this organization that's rubbish, not me. Or you get how can I, at whatever level I am, have an impact on the business? And we're like, well, you can have an impact right the way to the top. Even if you're a receptionist, you're a receptionist in a company, make people smile. That's all you need to do. Just make people smile. Welcome them like you would into your home and send them off to their meeting smiling. That's big impact stuff and cultural stuff. I think I rambled a bit there, and I'm certain I answered questions you didn't ask me, but I'm hoping that was a good enough answer. Ask me more.
Sweetheart, the only thing that I'm delighted about is you're sharing things with people here that they can hear and they can do something different. Doesn't matter how small, but they can do something different. And that is amazing that you're sharing this. So I thank you. One of the things I do want to ask you, because in any organization, in my experience, where you get the biggest problems is the level below the board, because there is quite often no trust. And they're telling the board what they think they want to hear rather than the truth and the reality of what's actually going on. So the key here for me is trust. Now, this is a question that you can think of. It doesn't have to be for the top. But let's say that you're going in to take over either a new team. You could be going in as CEO of a new company. And the one thing that you know is really not present in the company is trust. What do you think that you need to do to begin to build trust in your team and in the organization?
You've got to reveal who you are. You have to share who you are. You have to drop the armor. Brené Brown calls it armoring up, right? In the Living Leader, we call it the behind the mask.
Yeah.
The worst thing that you can do is go into that organization pretending to be something that you're not, or pretending to be something that you expect them to see, because you cannot keep that up for very long. And so you might come in being a certain way, but if that is not truly who you are, that way of being will shift and you'll very quickly become somebody that everybody's wary of. Right? You'll be inconsistent. You'll respond in a different way to what's being expected. So the only way that you can begin to build trust is in the human connectivity. And the first step of that is assume that you can trust them. So assume that you can trust everyone around you instead of assuming that you can't. Now, you may well have been in organizations or jobs in the past where somebody stabbed you in the back or somebody's responded, and you can carry that with you if you like, and you can have that create this armor if you like. It's not going to get you any different outcome. If what you choose intentionally to do is to show up in the realest sense of the real you, the one that shows up at 3:00 on a Sunday afternoon when you're sitting on your couch, surrounded by people you love, having had a glass of wine, that person, that real you, if you can show that real you as quickly as possible in that human connected relationship, the worst that can happen is nothing. But what will actually happen is you will instinctively and subconsciously engender trust in the other person. So no person is going to share with a new boss everything they think and feel about the business, all of the shit, the things that they don't like, unless the boss has shared what they think and feel and given them permission to be able to share exactly what they think and feel. So it's about that immediacy of human connection. And if you are wearing any kind of mask, and we all do, it's there to protect us. It's the mask that goes, I'm not going to share too much about myself because I'm just not sure that I trust you yet. Assumption. I'm not sure I trust you yet. So I'm going to show you what I think you need to see. It's car crash stuff. And I'm quite passionate about telling this to really young people because I'm segueing here, but I think you'll understand why. Dating apps are causing carnage in relationships because what you do when you go on it, not that I've gone on. I'd just like to make that perfectly clear. I've been married for 32 years. I'm very happy. But when you go onto a dating app, you will put up your profile. Might be a little bit edited, might be a little bit nuanced. And then you'll write out what you want to see in a partner, in a match. I'm looking for da 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 da. And the other person is doing exactly the same. Very, very rarely will you, on your profile on a dating app, will you share the real who you are, your fears, your foibles, the things you're not good at, the things that terrify you, the things that make you anxious, whatever. You won't share any of that. So when you meet for the first time, you're meeting in a bar for the first time, what do you think you see? You are both showing the other person what you believe the other person needs to see. So there's whole bloody relationships that can go on for like years. And then I'll speak to somebody in their 30s and they'll go, well, I've just had a divorce because, my partner just didn't understand me. And I'll think, I wonder if that's because at some point you made a choice that you're going to show up in a certain way and that way wasn't you. And now as you're getting a little bit older and a bit more mature and a little bit more introspective and you understand a little bit more about yourself, maybe, they don't like what they're seeing now, or you're not liking what you're seeing now in the other person. Well, that analogy, that works in any first meeting, human to human. We put up a mask, they put up a mask. We expect certain things of them. So it might not be the dating app one, but you imagine starting your first day of work and you've got a one-to-one with the new sales director. You're going to have certain expectations about that sales director based on the last sales director you worked with, who actually looked a little bit like this one and sounded a little bit like this one and probably went to the same school as this one. And therefore you have a set of expectations about that person, right? And then they're going to have exactly the same about you. They're going to have a set of expectations about you. So I often say, there's not one mask going on when you first meet someone. There's actually four. There's the mask that's saying, I'm going to show you what I think you want to see. And they're doing the same. And then there's the mask of expectation that you're placing on them and they're placing on you. So you've hardly opened your mouth. And there's 4 layers of shit and history and past experiences and assumptions going on between who you both really are. So for me, it's absolutely to engender and create an environment of trust. You have to make it safe for them to be who they are. And they're not even going to begin to feel safe unless you've shown them that they make you feel safe. And you share who you are, who you really are, what you're really thinking and feeling. What your character really is all about. And drop that mask as soon as you possibly can. That's what I think creates trust. So it's knowledge, deep knowledge of people in your teams, really understanding what's going on for them. And that might take you questioning because not everybody will be used to sharing, and they'll have all sorts of assumptions about you as a new manager or a new boss or a new leader coming in, right? So it may not happen immediately, But the more you know about your teams, where they've come from, the experiences that they've had in their lives, what's going on for them in their life at the moment, then the more trust you'll be able to create. And the more trust you have, the better everybody will show up.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating because, you know, every company we go into, and I'm talking here about when it's integrated teams, we do that introduction in the beginning, the impact every time, even if you get a team sort of thinking, why are they asking us to do this? Goodness sake, we all know each other. And every time they go, oh my God, I didn't know that. Oh my God, I didn't know that was going on for you. Oh gosh, and I've got the similar problem as you have with one of my children, or whatever it is, the things that come out.
I think got to cut across you then. We're not allowed to do that. We don't do that. We teach you not to do that in the Living Leaders, just so you know. But you know that I delivered to a board in the US last year. There were 10 of them, so it's the CEO and 9 of his direct reports. There were 4 of them with children that were on the spectrum, right? Autistic, 4 of them.
Wow.
And none of them knew. They've been working together for 20 years. One of them had worked for that company for 29 years. They'd been working together as a team for 20 years. And they never knew that 4 of them were going through exactly the same experience at home. They'd never shared it. Never shared it. And they're like, oh my God, we need to talk about this, because what do you do about this? And how is this impacting you? And what kind of care system have you enrolled? All that stuff. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I literally went, oh my God, guys. And you think you talk to each other? It was amazing. So, you know, even teams that have worked together for years, and it can be even harder because they might have been wearing some sort of mask for years, right? And so then that becomes even harder to drop it. I think I told you I had an experience once in Australia in one of the really, really big agencies. And in the agency world, in the marketing agency world, there's quite a lot of quite alpha behaviours, and in Australia especially, quite historic control and command hierarchical behaviours. And we were doing the introductions with an intact team, one below board. And we went around the room one by one, and then we got about halfway through, and one of the people said, I'm not doing this shit. And I went, okay. He said, I just don't want to share. I just don't want to share. And I went, that's okay. And we moved on. And we got to the last one. And then the guy went, actually, Sherilyn, I do want to share now. Would it be okay for me to share? And I went, yeah, great. And he completely opened up, and they learned things about him they just didn't know. So, you know, it can be a bit confronting, because we've been taught for so long by these patriarchal, archaic leadership systems that, you know, sharing is risky. If you show your soft underbelly, it's going to get slit open much easier. If you show vulnerability, that's weakness. If you show any kind of uncertainty, that's weakness. That's not good leadership. Well, bollocks to all of that. It's rubbish. You know, there's going to be times where there'll be things that you can't share. There'll be things that you may choose not to share. But unless you share 10 times more than you think you should, quickly, when you're first making these human connections, you're going to get bloody shit coming back at you. And you're just not going to get to see the human beings that are in your team for who they are at any level.
100% agree with you, 100%. And I have experience of seeing a new CEO going into a company who absolutely lives and breathes what we're teaching. And the impact they can have quickly is nothing short of amazing. What's your experience if you've got a pretty shitty culture in an organization? If you get a really good CEO going in at the top who lives and breathes the principles, how quickly do you think they can shift the culture?
If they really live and breathe this stuff, really quickly. Yeah. Really quickly. Again, it won't be easy. you know, there will be resistance when you're looking to create real behavioral change. You're not going to do that unless you start really challenging the belief systems that are causing those behaviors. And a CEO going into an organization making that kind of shift. So we're really saying it was a toxic culture. You know, it was very control and command. We now need somebody that's going to be more pulling the team, you know, with them, changing the culture to much more embracive, inclusive, equitable. Then there's going to be resistance. And here's the thing about it. And this is something that we learned from McKinsey. We work with McKinsey on the fellowship. There will always be people within an organization that when you're trying to make change, especially as a CEO, when you're trying to make change, there is always going to be a proportion of people, it's usually around 10%, that are what McKinsey calls mutineers. And I call them corporate terrorists. So you're always going to get a proportion of people that literally go, nah, I'm not up for this. And if they are influential within the organization and you keep them in place, it's going to take you much longer to make that change happen. Because you've got visible, vocal, influential people, and they're against everything you're standing for. So you have to act really quickly. You literally have to help those people get the career that they want and they need in the company that they need. It is not going to be your company. But you've usually got around 80% of the people that are going, oh, this could be a really good thing. You know, we need change. We need change. And they'll be embracive of it, but you're asking them to change beliefs that they've held for years, which means the behaviors that you need to start exhibiting have to be really consistent. And everything that a leader does at any level is you are talking through a microphone. You're being heard 10 times louder than you're speaking. And every action you're exhibiting is under the microscope. So you've got to be really consistent with the behavioral shift. You know as well, I delivered the Living Leaders to a big UK company that have been around for 100 years. And the average kind of tenure of the people within the organization is probably 26 years. I don't think I had anybody on my program that had been there less than like 20 years. And they were desperate for change. But really hard for them to let go of all of the things that they believed about the business through the last 20 years to shift their behaviors. So if you're a CEO going in and you need to make widespread change, you've got to find the 10% of people who are high profile, loud voiced and influential and are totally on board with what you're wanting to do. And those people become your captains. And those people become the advocates of change. And those people are made aware that the behaviors that they're exhibiting are going to be under a microscope and what they're saying is going to be heard 10 times louder. But you build the advocacy for the shift and change underneath you. And that's how you make change happen in an organization when it's really cultural. Because the second any change is cultural, it hits people at a heart level. It's so deep. And so it's a challenge. It's a great challenge, though. It's a fabulous opportunity.
It is. And the thing that I think is that you've just said there that I think is so key. And I remember Chris Weston saying this, the lovely Chris Weston, who we both think is amazing. He was saying that you have to recognize that there is no action you take, no words you use that won't be picked up. It is 100% of the time you need to live it and breathe it. And that's scary. It is scary.
It is. And that comes back to intentionality again, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, you'll slip when you're being mindless. You'll slip probably when you're under pressure.
Yeah.
Right. So you be aware of that. A pressure point is where it's harder to hold on to the intention. But you got to be constantly mindful of the intentionality around everything you do, especially when you're in a position of influence. But like we said, that's everybody and anybody, not just the CEO. It's everybody and anybody. And then ensuring that there's a feedback culture within the business. You know, that's a whole nother session, and we'll do a whole nother podcast about feedback.
I know. I was just looking at that thinking,
Yeah, we
God,
got to go.
I can't believe it. We've been for the hour. Sherilyn, I just have to say thank you, because I think what you've really, really given people in this hour is so many small insights of things that they can do differently. You've highlighted the real importance of leadership. You've separated leadership and management enough to say, even though you need both, there is a difference. And I think that you've given people some real nuggets. So, you know, I love working with you. Thank you, darling. You've been utterly amazing. And I so appreciate your time. And let me just say to anybody, if you've got any questions, because we both probably spoke so much that we didn't even look to see if there are any questions. If you have any, please do email us.
Yeah, email us or put it on LinkedIn. Get hold of us. We're available. We're here, and we love talking about leadership in any context. So hit us up.
Thanks, sweetheart.
Thank you, darling. I'll see you soon.
Get better soon.
Love.